Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and I'm here today to talk about the games in 2016 that managed to pleasantly surprise me. I imagine each of you will have your own list or your own selection of games that pleasantly surprised you in 2016, and of course I'd love to hear you share them down in the comment section below. Let's go ahead and get right into the thick of it with my list. Now, Infinity Ward's biggest challenge with Infinite Warfare had to be overcoming the expectations and the wants of the Call of Duty community, half of which was seemingly stuck in the past, demanding a return to the good old days of Modern Warfare and standard military settings, and half looking for change and evolution for the future of the franchise. Infinite Warfare pushes more towards the future, both figuratively and literally, embracing a full-on sci-fi theme, complete with dogfights in space, capital ships, future tech, crazy AI-driven robots named Ethan, and zero-G combat, all represented quite well in its rather fantastic single-player offering. Throw in a solid story, a great cast of characters, and new gameplay opportunities presented by this leap into the stars, and it makes this one of the best Call of Duty campaigns ever, and one of the best single-player first-person shooter experiences I've had this year and in quite a long time. As it turns out, the multiplayer isn't too shabby either. It introduces a small layer of hero shooter and RPG elements via combat rigs and weapon crafting. That's led to me putting in over 30 hours with the game's multiplayer just over Christmas break. The return of extensive weapon customization, the Pick-10 system, and a seemingly endless stream of playstyle customization options makes this the most flexible Call of Duty multiplayer yet. I can have a loadout for any number of situations, for any number of specific playstyles that makes the multiplayer really quite endlessly enjoyable to play, regardless of all the nonsense going on with paid map DLC and supply drops. It feels great. It maintains that crisp and addictive core gameplay that COD has become so well known for, and it dabbles in some new concepts along the way. Even if it doesn't go all the way with those new concepts, I think rigs could have been fleshed out, they could have taken a few bigger risks with those. It's still a great direction for the franchise, and one that I believe could completely evolve it as it moves into the future. Dead Rising 4 would see the return of the legendary Frank West, while also taking us back to good old Willamette, this time letting us explore the whole town rather than just the mall. It may not have had the same difficulty and challenge of the original Dead Rising, but the return of great humor, a new leveling system, over-the-top weapon and vehicle crafting, gave us a massive arsenal and number of ways to take zombies to the slaughter. Throw in a solid story, a fantastic holiday theme that isn't afraid to take more than a few shots at commercialism, and Dead Rising 4 mostly makes up for its lack of challenge. It's a game that had me grinning, smiling, and laughing out loud more times than I can count. It's often absurd, and mowing down endless hordes of zombies simply never gets old. Really, the only thing holding back Dead Rising 4 from giving me the same feels as the original is its lack of difficulty, which fortunately Capcom has said they will be introducing optional difficulties in 2017 to address said issue. And just maybe then, we'll have the return of a true hardcore Dead Rising experience. Now, I should note that holiday theme does a lot for Dead Rising 4, and given its release window in early December, Dead Rising 4 for me has already cemented itself as that sort of action-y Christmas experience. It's like how people watch Die Hard during Christmas because it's an action Christmas film. Well, Dead Rising 4, fortunately, at least I feel, has put itself in a very similar position, and that's kind of special. Doom 2016 had an incredibly difficult and challenging development cycle. In fact, at one point, the entire project was basically wiped clean, and the team at id started anew. For many of us, as consumers and as people looking from the outside in, years and years would go by, leak after leak, tease after tease. And it came to a point where I think many of us felt that Doom would never see the light of day again. We would never see another Doom game from id. But that day would eventually come. Unfortunately, the first time that we played Doom 2016, it would be a beta test for the game's uninspired and jumbled mess of a multiplayer offering. Soon after that, Bethesda would announce that they weren't going to hand out any pre-release codes for reviewers, stoking the fires of doubt even further. Thankfully, the day would finally come, and we would finally get our hands on Doom's single-player offering. And as it turns out, it was quite good. In fact, I would consider it a masterful concoction of old school FPS design with all the modern trimmings, stunning graphics and gore, freeform level design, and a soundtrack that felt like it was constantly egging you on to kill more demons, to be more badass. Doom is the first FPS since Halo 3 that I've played through multiple times in its first week of release. Hidden areas, collectibles, secrets, and the insanely satisfying gunplay make Doom 2016 one of the most replayable single-player first-person shooters that I've laid my hands on in the last 10 years. It makes you feel like a badass. It makes you recognize that you're there to kill demons. It's a self-aware game. It's fantastic. Need I say more? It's just one of the best playing first-person shooters I have put my hands on in such a long time, and I know so many agree with me. It's not groundbreaking. I wouldn't say that it's evolutionary, and I think in a lot of ways it's looking back to the past to build much of its core experience, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with us recognizing that there were a lot of things that we did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that worked quite well. I think change is good, progression is good, but there are certain things that were really good from the start that we left behind, and I think Doom is a great example. It does a good job of highlighting some of those things and why they still kick ass as game design components. I think at the end of the day, the team at id pushed through a hell of a storm to make Doom 2016, and it more than lived up to its incredible first-person shooter legacy.
Have you seen it yet?
Nah, man, I waited for you.
You're the best. Thank you.
All right, everybody, we're gonna watch the trailer. Shut the fuck up.
Shut up!
The idea and concern of graphical downgrades have become nearly synonymous with Ubisoft. And many would say that it started with Watch Dogs, a game that never delivered on its originally showcased visual fidelity, and one that soon fell victim to the shortcomings of many open-world games. Problems like repetitive mission design, and more importantly, a hacking mechanic that never felt like it reached its full potential. Now, I personally enjoyed Watch Dogs, and I was quite optimistic that Watch Dogs 2 could be, at the very least, something that was a lot of fun to play. As it turns out, it's just that. In fact, it's a game that is an absurd amount of fun to play, and it's also a fantastic depiction of a modern cyberpunk hacker world. One that this time around looks to improve the player experience by greatly expanding and upgrading its hacking mechanic. Watch Dogs 2 lets players hack just about everything, ensuring that you will never look at a mission or challenge and visualize just one path to success. This is without a doubt the game's biggest strength. Knowing that I can complete any mission in more than a dozen ways has had me replaying the same missions again and again just to see how I can alter my outcome, just to see how I can layer and stack different gadgets, abilities, and hacking methods to alter my outcome or possibly to emulate a certain playstyle. It's as if they took the best parts of immersive sims like Dishonored and BioShock and pumped them into a large open world like Grand Theft Auto. Watch Dogs 2 is without a doubt one of my sleeper hits for 2016. I'm so glad I managed to pick it up over the holiday break, and just the first 3 hours I spent with the game were filled with great moment after great moment. And the more I've played it, the more I've unlocked gadgets and equipment, the more enjoyable and the more expansive the game has actually become. If you like open world games, and you like the idea of hacking, Watch Dogs 2 is a must-buy this year, or at least sometime in 2017. The Division was a game that managed to amass an incredible amount of pre-launch excitement and hype. Whether it was news outlets covering it or whether it was Ubisoft themselves showcasing the game many times across a 4-year period before it would finally release. A lot of people were really excited at the potential that the Division held, and some would find themselves disappointed, but many would find themselves in a position to really enjoy what the Division had to offer when it did finally release. Unfortunately, it wasn't very long after launch where things would start to go south, and the Division would make its way through some incredibly rough times. Players would start burning through the core content in just the first month, which some people expected and some people didn't. One way or another, many looked at this as a bad sign that the game wasn't going to be able to sustain itself for months and months to come. It had a complete lack of replayability at endgame. There were severe loot balancing issues, making it an incredible grind. massive bugs, and hackers in the PvP. I mean, the list goes on and on. But rather than leave the game to die and start to toss out the paid DLC along the way, the team at Massive elected to face a bigger challenge and mend their now broken game. They dug in, went to work, delayed the game's paid DLC, and pushed out a massive overhaul of the game's core systems, effectively tweaking, modifying, and rebalancing everything while adding new free content to extend the endgame and core leveling experience. They had put the Division back on the map and put it in a fantastic position to accept its upcoming paid DLC, the Survival expansion. They introduced world tiers to make the single player and cooperative element more replayable, and they made it feel more like a third-person shooter take on Diablo 3 when it came to loot balancing, and I say that in all the best ways. They would then launch Survival before the end of the year and make the Division a massive and diverse offering where players could finally start to appreciate the game's insane level of detail, environmental design, and atmosphere. And at this point, they could play it exactly how they wanted to. You could level up, unlock gear, and reach the new level caps by playing whatever it is you wanted to play. Solo, cooperative, PvP, or PvE, and of course the introduction of Survival as well. They turned the Division into something quite fantastic. The sort of game that I really loved at launch was now back and bigger than ever, and far more respectful of the player's time. Honestly, I'll say it again, I've said it before, as the Division currently stands with one more piece of DLC down the road in 2017, it is more than worth your money. If you can find a bundle on sale that features all the DLC or the season pass, you're going to get a package that is so dense and so loaded with ways to play, whether you play alone or with friends, that you simply will not regret it.
Op 4 eliminated. Mission successful.
When I played Rainbow Six Siege back in 2015 and was first introduced to its incredible destructible environments, I knew it was something special, a fantastic, explosive, tactical PvP offering that seemed to really be doing justice for the Rainbow Six Siege name. Now, Rainbow Six Siege unfortunately would stumble a bit off the line. It saw some weird balancing issues, and honestly, I don't know exactly why it wasn't as successful as it is now at launch, but for one reason or another, players were leaving the game en masse. They simply weren't interested in playing the game long term. So Ubisoft started tweaking, refining, and improving the game based on community feedback. And before you know it, we sit in 2016 with a community now reborn, its player base expanding and rebuilding itself in just a few months. It currently stands as one of the top played games on Steam on a regular basis. It's also one of the best PvP first-person shooters you could play in 2016, and with the year 2 of DLC planned for 2017, I have no doubt that it will continue to comfortably hold its position as one of the best PvP FPS on the market. Rainbow Six Siege is a game that deserves all of the attention in the world. It's such a satisfying and pure PvP first-person shooter experience. I think it's one of the few truly tactical PvP games left on the market, one that, really rewards the player for decision-making, map knowledge, and teamwork. It's such an incredibly satisfying game to play. I simply cannot recommend it enough. All of these games really managed to shine through some difficult times. And of course, at the heart of their success is their development teams. The people behind the game who didn't want to see something that they had built on love and passion die out. The people who put in even more time and energy when there was probably not much left to make these games rise from the ashes, to make them relevant, and to see their communities come flocking back to them so they could be successful, so they could be played and loved in 2016, and I imagine even as we move into 2017. If you guys have any personal lists or personal games that pleasantly surprised you in 2016 that you'd like to share, as I mentioned before, please feel free to do so down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. I am still working on a new closer, so I'll see you in the next one.